Meeting to order. First order of business is approval of the agenda. Do I move it?
We need a mover in a second.
Changes.
First, we need a mover in a
First we
second.
move. So move.
Move.
Councillor McLaughlin, second. Councillor Bain. Mandy?
Additions, deletions, changes.
I'd like to add to item 9, under 90.1, add section A, under Community Charter 90.1, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for position, officer, employee, agent of the municipality, or other position appointed by the municipality.
What was the first part of that, Mayor Brewer? Personal, first 5 words or so of the...
Personal information about section A of 90.1.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, all in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Public participation.
I believe none.
Proceed.
None.
Okay.
Adoption of the minutes from July 22nd, 2014 in your budget.
Mayor Brewer, since Councillor Bain and I were the ones here, I propose
Are you going to rely on you on that one?
I will accept the 2-pager.
Okay, so I need a mover and a so move and
Second.
second. Bain McLaughlin. All in favour? Opposed? Carried. Business arising? Mandy?
There is none.
None? Proceed. Unfinished business.
Thank you, Mayor Brewer. If I can go with this very quickly for my colleagues. By default, I've taken on the piece with the library because of Mayor Broughton, who was heavily involved along with Councillor Wansley. The quick skinny is that the library, while completed in its present state, has no bookshelves. The books are in a pile where the bookshelves would go. The bookshelves are currently in a container down at the workshop. There is some furniture here, and others have been ordered, should be here in January. At this point, there is nothing going on pending decisions today, later today, for the council, which I'll add to the agenda. The quick skinny again is the budget remaining for the library for completion and for their opening is approximately $2,700 confirmed by the CAO.
21. 21.
21, thank you very much.
Even better.
Not so good. And later this evening I'll be proposing $3,500 and the purpose of that will be that so that this does not come back to council for a small amount. The work that needs to be done, in quick again, is that the shelves need some minor millwork to lower the height of them. They need to be painted, they need to be returned to the library, they need to be installed, they need to be anchored to the floor. And the books need to be put into the thing. I believe the CAO will arrange for the shelving to come from the workshop to the library, and the library executive are going to arrange for everything else pending the completion of the stuff. The purpose of my proposing the increased budget is to take this out of administration's hands. The library people can find their own painters and mill types that they can do this within a tiny budget and move towards their own opening of the venue when the work is completed. I'd be happy to take any questions.
No questions?
The final piece on this is that the library executive would accept the mandate that I'll lay out tonight on terms of the budget, and that they do the handling. The proviso would be that as they proceed, they copy the CAO so that the steps are documented. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron. So, moving on to item number 7 on the agenda, new business. Public Works Overview. You're up.
I'm up. Okay. Hello.
Welcome.
So my name is Nikki. I'm the Public Works Manager for the Village of Lions Bay. We have a very small department. It's currently comprised of myself and 4 regular full-time staff. We augment historically by 2 temporary full-time positions in the summer. This year has been a bit different in that we have simply carried over one of those temporary full-time people straight through to the year end. The tenure with the village with my staff ranges from 16 years to just shy of 6 months, and I'm the least tenured one of a lot of them. So my first day with the village was June 23rd of this year. We're responsible for all the water infrastructure within the village, which has been keeping us ridiculously busy over the last couple of months, as I'm sure you're all aware. We're also responsible for roads, boulevards in the village, so you'll see us out salting and plowing when the need arises. We also maintain boulevards, so we do a lot of brush cutting and clearing and things like that. We try to keep the culverts and ditches that comprise our drainage system clear. We keep up the parks and beaches, landscaping. We mow the school field. We are responsible for village-owned facilities maintenance and the sewage treatment plant. In addition to our regularly scheduled work programs and dealing with any emergent situations that come up, we also provide service to the community. We turn water on and off. We run around and try to make sure that there are no leaks. We determine whether the leaks are on private or public property. If they're on municipal property, then we fix them. And if they're on private property, we follow up with a letter and advise people that they need to get that fixed and then make sure that they do that. And we also set up and take down community events. So you see us around quite a bit. I'm sure that everybody is kind of curious about the water system. So I'll give you a very brief overview of what we have and how it kind of relates. Later today, you'll be at council meetings, we'll be discussing infrastructure and things of that nature. So we have 5 tanks. Our primary reservoirs are at Harvey and Magnesia. Magnesia right now is severely compromised. Harvey is going strong. We are interconnected in that we can feed the entire village from Harvey. What we can't feed from Harvey is Magnesia. So we cannot get water from Harvey easily into the tank at Magnesia, which is a problem. Those 2 intakes that are located at Magnesia and Harvey, they're dangerous areas. They're dangerous for our staff to get into, and they're dangerous because there's unstable terrain upslope. So as a result, we do have very strict procedures as to when we can and cannot go in. And they're quite onerous, especially this time of year, because they're associated with rainfall. Because the terrain gets more unstable upslope, the more the ground gets saturated. So we actually haven't been able to get into either of the intakes to even assess damage until late yesterday afternoon. So it may seem that we aren't quick to respond to get up there, but there are definite reasons why we can't. So let's see. Historically, Lions Bay has had high consumption rates for water, higher than the GVRD. It's likely a combination of a bunch of things. Leaks, they contribute a lot. We have fairly high pressure, so we get a leak, we know about it pretty quickly, and they're sometimes hard to find. Water goes to ground here, so if we have a leak in our system, it's sometimes hard to find because we have pipes that are buried quite deep, and the water can go out into places that we can't immediately see. If our infrastructure was a bit closer to the ground, we'd see the usual sort of water feature all of a sudden. And we haven't seen that recently. Yes?
Is this common in other municipalities, if we take away the new planned ones that are
Yes.
state-of-the-art?
Yes. So every municipality is going to have leaks. It's the nature of water. So at any given point in time, every municipality's got some leaks, some that they're aware of, some that they aren't. A lot of municipalities now have water meters. So it's a bit easier for them to tell if the leak is on the private side, because all of a sudden consumption spikes on the private side, and you generally get called when somebody's like, my bill is astronomical, what's going on? So that's where we differ slightly from other municipalities locally. We have high consumption rates also in that we have a lot of irrigation here. Many houses have irrigation systems. We do have pools. We don't really regulate our water use as much as perhaps we could or need to in the future. And yeah, it would be sort of a combination of things, and we don't actually have conservation measures that we put in every year. So, for example, Metro Vancouver, June 1st, no matter what, you have, lawn sprinkling every second day, you can't irrigate, that type of thing. And we historically just haven't done that. So we do have fairly high consumption rates. And we have had in the past a number of engineering studies and reports done with regard to our infrastructure. And I believe that the village has been chipping away at those. There was a comprehensive water study done in 2006. It outlined a bunch of things. There were some follow-up reports. So I really like, as far as I can tell, I think that, the studies have been done, things have been noted, and decisions have been made in the past as to which projects to go forward with. We have definitely seen, Lions Bay has definitely seen an influx of money from grant funding. We have definitely lobbied the government in the past. I know we will be in the future. So we have been chipping away at things that were known, and we'll continue obviously to do so. And that's really the quick and dirty on public works as far as a very high kind of overview. I'll give you more of an update with regard to infrastructure, what's coming up in the council meeting. But are there any other questions with regard to public works itself?
No. But back to other questions, if you could answer
Sure.
them quickly. Thank you very much. Given the, as you say, the chipping away on the projects, there was also kind of a brief flurry of engineering work done in the mid-2000s. It's a two-part question. We're pretty much, as near as I can tell, at the end of what the recommendations were then. And so that's a confirmation yes. And I'll let you go to the answering is it time now for a master, in your view, a larger master infrastructure plan to do with water? And if we weren't having the events that we are now, is it something you would be putting forward in the 2015 budget?
With regard to the first question, I believe there are still some things outstanding, but the
They're
majority of
smallish.
the majority of things that were brought up have definitely had. There was a itemized schedule at the end of the 2006 report, and many of those items have definitely been taken care of prior to my coming to the village. With regard to your second question, I personally believe that planning is critical for everything. So I don't think that we can really, in general, I don't think people can move forward without a plan. So do I believe the master plan, an infrastructure master plan is important? Absolutely. I don't believe we can move forward without a plan. I agree wholeheartedly with the infrastructure committee when they said we need a plan. Absolutely. And that is a council report that's on the table for this evening.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Can you put a dollar value on the amount of stuff that hasn't been completed out of the 2006 report?
Off the top of my head, I cannot do that. I can go back and find out what those amounts were in 2006. In order to have a definitive dollar amount, I would then have to take those projects, go back and somehow extrapolate what's left to 2014 dollars as well.
Would it be fair to say that a lot of those have been overtaken by events now, and we probably wouldn't do them in a new master plan? They're somewhat superseded.
There could be every danger of that as well, correct.
Okay, anything else? Thanks, Nikki. So that's a great overview. There's more to come, as we know. We're getting
Absolutely,
to
you'll
the
see
later.
me in council.
That's great.
later.
Thanks very much.
With luck, I'll be changed by then. Maybe not.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nikki.
Depends what happens.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for that. So next, Dave Butler is going to talk us about building permits and inspections.
I'm just going to cut to the quick, make it short and sweet, I hope. I think most of you know me. My name is David Butler. I've been with Lions Bay Village for the last 6 councils, or the last 18 years. And my duties basically are outlined here. out. I inspect residential construction, both new and alterations, to ensure compliance with the building, zoning and bylaws of the current British Columbia Building Code. I perform plan checking for new construction and alterations to single and multi-family dwellings and commercial buildings. I discuss construction, alterations and repairs with architects, professional engineers, contractors, homeowners and tradespeople. I ensure the building contractor, homeowners obtain various services, trade inspections before passing the building for occupancy. I survey fire damaged buildings prior to repair, inspect grow-ops, and we've had a few in the village. I do reports on inspections, I issue inspection notices where required, I give factual evidence in court, perform related work as required, and I send contractors, homeowners to the Board of Variance if they're in non-compliance with the zoning bylaws. That's just an outline. Okay. Any questions so far?
Plenty, but
Okay.
they'll keep.
I'll say, I've been with this organisation for 18 years and I've seen many changes during this period of time. In this organisation I've seen united councils and I've seen not so united councils. This village continues to grow, but new building lots are hard to find. Older buildings are being torn down and new lots and new buildings are being built, and our older single family dwellings are being renovated. We really need a bigger tax base here, and we're a small community, so we don't have so much land. So I'd like to see a lot of rezoning done. I'd like to see duplex lots, I'd like to see carriage houses, and possible new townhomes to bring in a bigger tax base. That's it, short and sweet. Any questions?
How many hours a month do you reckon you spend on Lions Bay Business Day?
I approximately 25 to 30 hours a month.
So the best part of a week a month.
It's been more recently, I would say.
Yeah, more recently.
The grow-ups, are they legal?
No,
Illicit?
we've only had maybe 3 or 4 in the village.
In the last 18 years or recently?
Well, 3 or 4 that we know of. There's probably a lot more. But
3 or 4 on Lions Bay Avenue that I know of. So,
but then again, I deal with grow-ups just no different than when I worked for the city. I did grow-ups, so we used to do 6 a week. So it gives you an idea.
They're using our water. That's what I don't like about it. The rest. Do you believe that Lions Bay needs it's not a zoning review, but a building standards review? The second part of the question is, I don't want us to start looking like Whistler, where everybody looks the same. Everybody's got those slopey posts and those kinds of roofs. Do you see the point in that, or a benefit in that in Lions Bay?
Well, you got to remember, Lions Bay, it's unique in so much that we've only got so much land here. We do have quite a bit of land that's available for us over at Brunswick Beach, that what we acquired back in 1999, which we've only developed 2 new homes on that particular property up to date. So there's quite a big area there that could be developed.
Yeah, that's a bigger discussion that we are
But
going to have.
rezoning, I mean, it's taken me 8 years, 6 years actually, to get suites. So I've gone through 2 councils just to get suites approved, let alone try and get carriage houses and these large lots rezoned for duplexes, so we can build duplexes here and bring in more tax base. Potentially we have a couple of areas in Kelvin Grove where we could put townhomes. We've got a couple of 3.5 acre lots over there. That's been brought to issue over the past 18 years and has been squashed by residents.
Yeah, well, it's obviously a fairly fraught thing, though, as we saw in the middle part of the year, right? In the whole, I wouldn't call it a debacle, but certainly.
But we are running out of land. We've only probably got half a dozen buildable lots that's not being built on, and the rest of it, we're having to rely on older homes being torn down and new homes being built. And this is the time where, if we had some rezoning, we could maybe, on some of these larger lots, allow for duplexes.
Yeah, you know, I mean, as I say, it's part of a larger discussion, but suites don't really add to the tax base unless there's a reassessment. And then really all it's doing is redividing the tax burden amongst different people. You're talking about new development adding to the tax base. In fact, suites actually diminish Lions-based resources because we get more people. And we don't get more money for them. I guess they bring kids to the school, potentially. They use more water, they use more roads.
But
So it's something that's going to need to be looked at quite carefully.
Yeah, but it's a given fact, no matter where we go and what part of municipality you have in the Lower Mainland, whether it's West Vancouver, North Vancouver, or Burnaby, we're going to have suites, illegal suites. And the nice thing about bringing that suite bylaw in is we can make those illegal suites legal and make them safer.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not looking at a monetary value on this, we make them so that they're safer to have it.
Ron, you got a point?
Suites also bring volunteer firemen.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not arguing about the need for suites.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about tax base.
Yeah, they don't bring us a big tax base. What we need to get tax base is we'd have to go to rezoning, put duplexes in, you know, multi-family homes, carriage houses even might do it.
Boy, do I have a committee for you to be on.
You know what to say about a camel, just a horse.
This is going to be a nice camel. Okay, anything else? Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Next up, Andrew Oliver. Hi guys.
Oh.
What are you swimming at?
Thank you. So, I think we've got the stats for last year.
They're on
I
the
think
back.
about 120 calls. We do about an average of 130 calls. I've been in the fire department since 1996. Fire chief from about 99, 2000. We've got about 26 members at this moment in time. We went up to 32. It's a lot of, it takes a lot of managing that many guys. Plus, it's a big burden on us. So we keep it to about 26 of for training wise, makes it much easier. Again, I'm with Dave on the grow ops. We go through, usually with the first close call for grow ops. We're not really meant to go in. We don't go in until the police are on scene because of the booby traps are in there. Especially there was one up on Bayview where there was a booby trap on that one. So we always tell the guys never to go in until the police go in first. Yeah, we train Sundays for 4 hours, and we train on Wednesday nights for 4 hours. Busy, always busy. And I also do bylaw. So we're dealing with bylaws, which I'm dealing with at the minute. Parking signs being removed.
You need stronger poles.
I don't know who removes parking signs, but we've got people that remove parking signs. Just doesn't make sense.
What's MESA?
Mesa, they're medicals.
Can you characterize of these ones, how many are in village and how many are on the highway?
Oh, in the MBA, pretty much 90% of the MBAs are out of the around the village. We have a PEP, so what we do is we every MBA we can claim money back. We get a PEP number for it.
Yep.
It's meant to be outside the village boundary, so Calvin Grove to Brunswick. I always tell the guys, just if we're going out, just to call for a PEP. As soon as we hit the highway, the chances once it's on the highway, it's residents. In the 20 odd years I've been doing this, we've only had a couple of residents that we've rescued. So we get money back for that. We get $300 a truck. obviously we've got some structure fires. We've had one in the village this year. But most of our calls are MBAs.
My understanding is that we're the go-to fire department in
Yeah.
the province because of our training capability, and that we're seen as the school for the best firefighters.
Yeah.
Do you feel that is that a good or a bad thing that we're training
Well,
hard?
when I first started, this was called Wallyville out here. So because we didn't train, we drunk a lot, and we didn't train. So as we've taken, since I started and Bob Allen started, we sort of like made it more of a professional department. We run it as career departments. I'm pretty strict and pretty straight with the guys. So when they leave here, they know what to expect when they go into the department. Be it they call everybody by rank, they're respectful. And I try and instill on them it's not just all about fire, it's about the community. So we have, we try and help out within the community as well. So, but yeah, we bring it to a certain level just so we're bringing a good quality product to this village.
Well, it's clearly working.
Do the other neighbouring benefit from our training? Yeah, they do. But they benefit a lot from what we put into them for these guys.
Thank you, Chief. Of the 22 plus your executive team, how many are aspiring out of the village firefighters and how many are residents? And it's a two-part question. Of the aspiring firefighters, what's the attrition rate? That is, how many are accepted elsewhere? And of the ones that are within the village, are you getting a continual influx of new volunteers to replace a regrettably aging village population?
We're not getting any new village. We're not. So to start with, we've got about 6 so it's taxpayers that are in the department. Out of those, most of them have been on 10 plus years. A couple are newer. But it's hard because it's, you have to still meet, even the homeowners have to meet a certain level. I don't, I train, everybody trains. If I'm setting this on a 36-foot ladder, I'm going to get up on that 36-foot ladder as well. We have a revolving door, as you guys know, with the wannabe firefighters. We lose probably 2 or 3 a year. We're always getting people wanting to join because of the training. But it's not, like I said, it's not all about the training for me. It's about the community. The training, yeah, we need quality guys. I've let a couple of guys go this last year because we've got some, there's only, we have a policy that we bring them in because we had so many people and train on a Wednesday night, it's hard for us to see them. So what I've done is, if you're a new member in the fire department, you come on a Sunday, and we have 4 shifts every Sunday, and sort of between 6 and 7 men are on that shift. So it's easier to see the new guys, to make sure that they bond and they fit in with the department and make sure we get on with them. So they have to do all 4 shifts on a Sunday or for a month. Then I get voted. They get voted on. Then I bring them in, sit them down, tell them sort of the ground rules on what I expect that they have to live in the village. Well, I do a little bit of that before. And then they come into the department again. And then we see what they're made of on a Wednesday. They're on 6-month probationary. They have to attend every weekend for 6 months. And then if they're not cutting it, then I let them go. And people we've had on it for a couple of years, I've let go. If they start slacking off and not if they're just here for the training, it doesn't work. They've got to be here for the right reasons, and the right reasons are the village. Training is a plus. That's what keeps them here, but they've got to be here for the village. And you know, as taxpayers, we're all taxpayers in this room. You know, we're paying for them. That's part of our taxes.
What would you say your top 3 challenges are? Long-term
Well,
challenges.
I'd like to get my contingency put back in place.
What's this?
Well, in the early 2000s, we had a contingency that we put aside for the fire department, and it was just ran. So any overage, any money I had left over from my budget went into a contingency fund, which we built up. Well, we don't have that anymore. I'd like to see that put back in place. I brought in with Max Wyman the tax levy for the fire department. I'd like to see all of that money and not just a portion of it. There's 2 challenges.
It's both the same thing. It's money.
It is money. I'd like to expand the hall because at the minute it's not current code, which we know about. There's no egress out from the ambulance. So we have a fire in the hall, they have to go out for a window. So we propose to do an expansion. How long ago, Dave? 6 years?
6 years.
So that was shelved. But have I had support from council? Yeah, always. Never had with council and staff. I've always had 110% support. Never been a question.
Actually, I have a question, and it's sort of personal. I think it's been brought up that Simon, who's my husband, is on the fire department, and currently he does some kind of administrative work.
Does
and
admin
because
for me.
admin, but because I'm on council now, he's
Well, there's a conflict of interest. We've been talking about. I've got to sit down with Mandy and discuss that further.
so that's not confirmed yet.
No, I just don't want pillow talk either.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
being disrespectful.
no. If-
I want to keep what's in the fire department in the fire department. And there's some grey areas there. So I've got to sit down. And again, we with this water issue, we just haven't had time to discuss that thoroughly. We talked about it when Grant was here briefly, but it's there was a concern there. It was raised, so I think we had to talk about that.
Yeah, as long as you let me know or him know one way or the other.
Oh no! I've already told Simon that I'm looking into it, so he's fully aware of that.
Okay. And
But there will be, there is already stuff, even with this water stuff going on. He was knowing stuff before I was knowing stuff. That's frustrating for me. You know.
Okay, and then my second question is going back to your challenges. You said money. Do you have are there some big projects in the near future that we should be?
Yeah,
Looking at?
we're building, we've been putting money aside for a burn building for a couple of 3 years. So, our existing burn building we built about 10 years ago, maybe longer, 15 years ago. That's just when it sort of rotted out from the rain and from the fires we have in there. So we're in the process of building a new one. Again, what we want to do with that is we want to build it for the department, but we also want to build it so other departments can rent it from us and we can train them in fireground operations, in emergency procedures. You know, the good thing with Bob Allen, who's our trainer, is he's also a JI trainer, and he trains chiefs as well in the department. So he's pretty good at that. So we're in the process. We've started with this year's budget from council. we've started it, but we've got to finish it now. We've got it all built pretty much, but we've now got to sort of put the windows and doors and the bells and whistles. We've got to put on there now, which I've budgeted for in my budget for this coming year. It's a lot of money, but not. But we're looking at, we're building a burn building on a shoestring of a budget when we're looking at $1 million burn buildings, which of the same size as what we've got, and we're doing it at a fraction of the price, not even close.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that all in the ongoing budget discussions.
Yeah.
Right, Ron?
Chief is also modest, Mayor Burr, that he is actually generates, other than hot dog sales and alleged beer sales in the September time when the fire went prominent, he's also to the forefront asking for grants and things like that throughout the year. And he's done some finagling with new and used equipment that somehow somebody gets an old pair of shoes and we get some cash. Thank you very much, Chief.
Oh yeah, we sell stuff, and we're actually selling Christmas trees for the Lions Club, which we do every year. And they usually, like last year, they donated an $8,000 TIG camera to us. So, we, through the month of December, in fact, I think it finishes on Thursday, but everybody in the department has to sell Christmas trees at least twice, including me.
Well, we've done amazing things with the small community that we have to support the fire department. We're batting way above our boxing. I don't know what the expression is. Boxing above our weight, batting above our average.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think so. I think when you look at our overall budget and what we do and the calls we have and the level of training, we're doing same as a career department, and we have to be at the same level as a career department as well. It is what it is. Oh, and we brought in sprinklers as well. So new construction, we have to do sprinklers now. That's another thing we brought in on our bylaw. Okay.
Fantastic.
Anything else?
Thanks, Chief.
Actually, just one last thing, we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge how much the fire department helped us last week during our water crisis. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
I don't know if you want to know what they did with one fire engine, but it's amazing what those fire engines can do.
I know.
Okay, we're moving on. 7D, Council Overview and Orientation. Former interim CAO and welcome guest.
We'll wait until afterwards. Thank you very much. I spent a fair amount of time trying to figure out what type of orientation to start presenting to council, and I've been thinking about am I bringing coals to Newcastle? You each one of you, Carl, or Mr. Chair, we're going to
I think we go with Carl.
there.
Carl's good.
I want to blind you.
Each one of you bring, I think, an incredible number of years of, a lifetime of experiences, as well as, your own professional expertise to this council. And I think this village is going to be well served. So when I started playing around with what type of presentation I should present at the very beginning, is really, in my mind, the basics. Where do we really start? And so I played around with this, and I made a lot of changes, and I threw it away and started all over again. And I guess the funny one is that you can drink champagne because last week was a lot cheaper than
That's still a
than
little
water.
painful, that one. So.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this pretty quick. We've got hard copies for this. So what I'm going to do is that I've broken a rule of mine on PowerPoint presentations where there should be very few words. What I've done is I've got a lot of words on the PowerPoint presentation in the document. I'm going to suggest that they be used more as a resource for you in the future to look at. And then what I'm going to do is go through this very quickly. One of the things that you're going to discover, if you haven't, because I know that there's 3 new members of council, is that being on council is going to be different from anything else you've ever done before. You've all probably sat on various committees, various boards, various agencies, but you've never, the three of you have never sat on a council before. And I think what I'm going to try to do is give you the experience that I've had in my 35 years working for local government, as well as a lot of experience that I've gathered from other groups, including the International City Managers Association, the Canadian Association of Municipal Managers, and George Cuff. George is going to be actually presenting at your newly elected program in January. He's got a lot of experience. He was a former mayor, councillor, former mayor, president of the FCM, and now is a consultant. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Ask any questions you want. So what's really is going to happen is that what I wanted to say is that when you were out there, I'm sure each one of you perceived from a lot of people who spoke to you that there's a lot of problems, or else you probably wouldn't have run. You probably are wanting to see a number of things that are going to be changed. So what you're really faced with is a lot of different questions. When I spoke with Helen, I guess before I left, is really a lot of questions is, who's really on first. What authority do you actually have? And what I want to talk about is what authority do you really have? And so,
Nothing.
one of the challenges is, I don't know if you've seen this one, but this isn't Takeoff.
I tell you, Jimmy, I love baseball. You tell me the guy's name from the teams where they see him in the big St. Louis ballpark. I'll be able to know those fellas.
All right, but strange as it may seem, they give these ball players nowadays very peculiar names.
Funny names.
Nicknames, pet names. Now, on the St. Louis team, we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
That's what I'm trying to find.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
You know the fellow's name?
Yes.
Who's playing first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow on first base.
Who?
The fellow playing first base for St. Louis.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who's on first?
Why are you asking me for?
I'm not asking you, I'm telling you who is on first.
You guys talking about me? How should I know? I never met the guy.
Oh, now you met him.
Met who?
Yes.
Look. Would you tell me your name?
Who?
You.
Who?
Him.
Me?
Yes.
Who?
What is your name?
No. What's on second? This is who?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
All right, calm down, will you?
Okay, listen. When I say hello to this fellow, I'm saying hello to who? Hello, nice to meet you.
See, now you're starting to get it.
Get what?
I'm right here.
And who are you?
I'm who?
What?
Yes?
Who's this fellow?
No, who is that fella?
I am who? Who am I? How am I supposed to know? What's your name?
Now, what is his name?
I'm not asking you what his name is. I'm asking you, who is this fellow right here? That's right. But what's his name?
What is my name?
You don't know your name.
Of course I do.
Well, then tell me.
What?
Your name.
What?
What's wrong with this guy?
Who? What? Yes?
Oh, I think he's got a hearing problem.
Who? What? Yes?
Look. Can't you see him talking to him?
Who? What? Who? What? Who? What? Who? What? Boys, settle down. Now then, I'm glad that's all cleared up. He's who and what's his name?
I don't know.
All right, gentlemen, I couldn't help overhearing the conversation. It's very simple. This fella's actual name is Ho, W-H-O, and this fella's actual given birth name is what? W-H-A-T.
Well, that clears it up. Why didn't you just say that in the first place? But wait, who are you?
I don't know.
Face!
I think we've all probably gone through frustrations when we start talking about moving forward and really not knowing who's on first at the very beginning, and it needs to be explained an awful lot. One of the things that Carl said, and I've heard this from a number of new council members, is that you've got to hit the road running, and I think that's key to any organization. But one of the things is that people don't expect you to be is an expert on governance right at the very beginning. or in the administration of a municipality. And I think, in discussions with Carl and Helen, and certainly when I first got here with the other councillors and throughout my career, it does take a lot of work to understand local government. Local government is a challenge. I think you went to the Council of Councils. Try to figure that organization out. That's a big organization to try to figure out, and I think Carl's been at the TransLink meetings, and he's been asked to make a vote on a very technical question, a very political question, without really having a lot of background information. And I think that's what you're going to be facing over the next while, and I'll be talking about that over the next while, is that one of the things you have to understand in this organization, in an elected place, is that you only have one vote. And I think, as Carl pointed out, is what authority do you have? Well, the only authority you have is when you're in a constituted meeting. You can talk about as much as you want outside the meetings, but you can't make a decision unless you come to here. And so when you start looking at it, everything depends on you pulling in at least 2 other people to support you. Now, I've been in a lot of organizations where there has been a minority and majority vote split all the time. The organization continues to function, but does it become a good organization? Does it accomplish a great deal? The answer is simply no. The organization just continues to grow. What it doesn't do is flourish, and I think that's what, when you've been in organizations that flourish, it's really because of the team that's come forward. So one of the things that I hope that you will understand is that when you come to realize that some of the problems you saw from the outside may not be problems after all. One of the challenges is that the public out there, don't have all the information, and it's very easy to become the Monday morning quarterback. The trouble is that you're not on the field, on the outside. You're not, facing that blitz that's going to hit you. Be prepared for it. Your decisions really will impact people's lives. Whether you like it or not, you're going to impact their pocketbooks and perhaps their ultimate safety. Both Dave and Andrew were, quite modest in what they've said, but, Dave's responsibility is for the public safety here. And, his judgment and his calls impact people's lives. And so you really have to understand that some of the decisions you have when you support some of the recommendations of staff are based on a lot of experience. And what you're going to be looking at is the political decision. And there's never going to be a right or wrong answer. There's going to be 50 shades of gray all the way through. What you're going to have to do is use your best judgment based on the amount of information you've got, the expertise that you're given. Andrew is responsible for much more than simply, the fire department. The number of hours and the number of times he has helped this organization, since I was here and with Mandy, is simply, if you had to pay for it, you couldn't afford it. This is a quote that I just love. Many truths of which the meaning cannot be realized until personal experience has been brought at home. Walk a mile in my shoes. Be prepared that you'll become frustrated by the glacial speed of decision making and wonder why everyone cannot move as quickly as you can, or perhaps thought you could. Everybody believes that things ought to move faster. But one of the things that you're going to find about local government is that it's a process. The other thing that you're going to do is have the ability to, when you speak, you now speak as a different person. And when you talk around this table, or when you're interviewed by the press, or when people come and talk to you, what you say really reflects this community. So you're no longer a private citizen. Whether you like it or not, whether you're at this table or not, you are now speaking on behalf of the village. One of the first things you're going to find out is that people are going to think you have more power than you actually do. And one of the challenges you're going to have is to explain to people why you can't fix the parking ticket, why you can't fix a number of different things. You can listen to them, you can certainly talk to them, but the thing is that you need to bring all those decisions back to this table. And unless you're prepared to work collectively, then it's going to be a very raucous 4 years ahead of you. I think there's going to be some people that expect you to do things very quickly, that you're going to accomplish everything that you said you were going to accomplish right away. What you're going to have to realize is that patience is a virtue in local government. Nothing will go as quickly as you would like it to go. And I'm not saying that out of criticism, I'm just saying that it's a very complex organization. When you start talking about what you deal with Metro, when you start dealing with TransLink, when you start dealing with all the different ministries, I actually prepared a slide that showed all the different ministries that impact Lions Bay. And I got them on 2 slides, and then I got, you know, what's the point? You're just going to have to realize there's a lot of organizations that impact Lions Bay. There's another thing that I've found in a number of organizations that I've been with in municipalities is that we've got to run it as a business. The trouble is, it's not a private business. You can't make the decisions because it is a public process. You have to understand, and I think, you know, Carl made the comment about the lump process, the debacle. One of the challenges that you're going to have is that when you bring that forward, because it will come back in one form or another, or there will be another matter, is how are you going to go up to the public and how are you going to get them to understand the decisions you want to move forward with? The other thing is that the real key is that there's 5 of you. Each one of you have been duly elected to this council. Each of you have got a number of votes, a number of supporters, and if you really want to get something accomplished in this community, or get the community behind you to move forward with something, then it's, you know, it's almost critical that you get all 5 of you to move forward. I'm not saying that everything has to be unanimous, but I think what you need to understand is that when you want to move something forward, the more you have the debate at this table and respect the debate, and more you're able to do that, I think, in a respectful manner, the easier it's going to get for the public to understand what you're dealing with. So, what are you going to do for the next 4 years? And how are you going to decide whether it was worth your time and energy 4 years from now? So when I started looking at this, I looked at a number of things that George Cuff wrote, and Gord McIntosh. I think Gord's going to be speaking at your presentation as well. There's 15 basic principles, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because they're written down. The real thing is that elected office is based on 2 fundamental points: the rule of democratic representation and the principle of accountability. The role of the elected official is unique. It is distinct and different from any other role. It needs to be learned and consciously applied to the council members to be successful. The public is and always will be the key to success. The interesting thing is that when you make a decision, when you have a typical meeting, public meeting, the people that typically come out are the people that are against it. Because and I've talked to some of you about this before, is I'm a strong believer in the 60-20-20 principle, is that 20% of the people will not support you, will not believe you, dislike everything you say, and will never agree with what you want to do. 20% of the people like you, support you, trust you, and will support you. 60% of the people out there, though, are going, I don't know, that's the silent majority. The trouble is we spend all our time, or a majority of our time, trying to get those 20% of the people that will never support us to try to support us. And we spend a lot of our time, an inordinate amount of time, with the 20% of the people who like us because we like to be liked. And we tend to ignore the 60% of those people that are out there that are going, I don't know. The interesting thing, though, is that when you make a decision, whether it's suites or whether it's going to be in rezoning on a particular item, and I think there's probably going to be a number of rezonings coming forward in the next 4 years, whether you're going to deal with the OCP or any of the other things, is you're going to have to decide on whether those 10 people, 20 people, 50 people that come out and say, well, they don't like it, are representative of the 60% of the people or the 80% of the people that may or may not support that. I'll just give you an example. When I was in West Vancouver, we weren't sure about the Grosvenor project, which is the waterfront project that we were moving forward. And it was in our mind, we were trying to think of whether in fact it was going to move forward. So we brought together a group of incredible developers and people that have been very successful in their careers. We asked them whether West Vancouver is ready for this project. What they turned around, they said, Grant, what happens if 1,000 people came out and said no to this thing? I'm going, well, that's a lot of people. He says, that's 1,000 people. There are 46,000 people who live in West Vancouver. Does that mean 45,000 people support it or don't support it? It comes down to political decision, your political will. And so at the end of everything is that you're going to have to make a decision, and it's a political decision. It's going to be based on the information you have, the debate around this table, and what you believe is right. And so there's a lot of elected officials that go like this, see which way the wind is blowing. There's a lot of elected officials that say, based on everything I know, this I believe is the right decision. When West Vancouver first decided to rezone the towers at 720 Taylor Way, those two towers, and created the endowment fund, the council got thrown out afterwards. But they believed very strongly that the municipality needed an endowment fund. So they allowed those two towers to be built and created an endowment fund that is since that time has built the community center and a number, including two fire halls, without any debt. They had foresight and they had the ability to say, I believe this is right. And they were willing to put their political futures on the line. So at the end, it's going to be a tough decision. You can either wait and decide whether this is in the best interest of the community or whether it's not. That's really your decision. The opinions of the minority should be considered carefully before your decisions are made. So you need to listen to people, but at the end, it's your decision. Council deals with the organization through one employee, the CAO. Any other course of action attempting to guide the work of administration should not be tolerated. And I think you're going to hear that over and over again, and I can't stress that enough. You have hired somebody to look after this organization. You need to support that person and give that person as much support and guidance, but you still need to set the policy, and I'll talk about it. One of the other things that I believe very strongly is council and its members cannot rest on your laurels. Each election campaign is a unique opportunity to hold a referendum on your work, and therefore, if you believe in your work, then the campaign should be addressed as vigorously as the last campaign. So if you really believe in the work that you accomplished this term, then the next term, when you go into the next election, then you need to stand up and support that all the way. Each new council, and I think this is the key to anything I believe in any new council, is that you need to determine your own priorities based on what you received and the input that you received from the campaign, because that is an opportunity to go and listen to the public. But what you do need to understand is that where is this council going? There's in anything, you need to set the work up front. You need to be prepared to do the work up front to say where you're going to go. And I think, I'm a strong believer in a council developing its own vision and strategic priorities. You need to know where you're going to go, or else, as I point out later on, any road can get you there. I've seen council members that respect each other, and I've seen council members where there's been a lack of respect at the council table. And I think an awful lot has to deal with the respect at the end of that table. The mayor sets the tone for this organization, for any organization. The mayor has to be diplomatic, but it also has to be, at times, autocratic. And then, this is the last one. This is an interesting one. This is actually from George Koff. And read this one. I'm not so sure if I support this one or not. From just reading that, what do you think that says?
I think that says everybody needs to be a leader. My principle is there's no bad workers, only bad managers, but everybody's a manager.
I read it differently.
I see it as we should all be in support, or at least appear to be in support of the mayor.
Getting close, from what I believe.
Well, I think the point is you're supporting the office, you're not supporting the person necessarily, although you have to show due respect. Just like I worked for a number of officers in the fire department who I didn't have a particular amount of respect. And don't take this personally, Carl, I'm not referring to you.
I'm not in any fire department.
Okay. Where some of the behavior was atrocious, but you had to respect their position and treat them with all the due respect of the position.
I think Carl's correct on this. The leader is the leader. All of us will be deputy mayor during a period throughout the year. We would expect the same respect come to us and the same leadership shown on the other way back out. The other piece too is that, which I think is part of this too, is that position is taken. The council rules is the majority rules on decisions, and that is the flavor of the council going forward.
Good decisions of a council are of the council. It's like a large committee or anything else. You're acting on behalf of whatever the mandate was, whatever it is that you're given to do. And so if you're not ever going to be in, the reality is a good council is never in complete agreement until after they vote, and then all of a sudden everybody agrees, they move forward respectfully of each other's position. And they've made a decision, and that's it. And that's the key to success as I see it, as a council member and as a council. So it's the position, it's the office that you hold, and together, you work together, you respect each other's opinion, and you move forward, and you make good decisions.
And that's, Jim, I think that's the way I've read this, and I think it's absolutely critical, is that once a decision is made, whether you like it or not, the decision's made and you need to move forward. What is most frustrating, and I think will cause a cancer in any organization, is if you refuse to accept a decision and you continue to hammer out or whine about it or complain about it or say, I'm not part of it. The part is that you're either a member of the team or you're not part of a member of the team. And I think one of the things that the mayor needs to be clear on, and each member of the team or this council needs to be, is once a decision's made, debate it before the decision's made, argue it, whatever you want, bring in whatever type of research you wish. But once that decision's made, the majority's made, move forward, or else it's going to be a cancer that's going to hurt this organization or any organization. And I totally agree with you there.
Would you say then once a decision is made, we all need to stand by it, whether we personally stand by it or not?
That's the standard of council rules. The decision is made. That is the view of all council members.
But proactively stand by it.
Versus opposing it?
No, versus, I don't know, you could be behind the scenes.
See, the thing is that what I'll be talking about are what makes a good team and what constitutes a team. Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
There's no place in a team for I.
Mm-hmm.
The team has made a decision, and the team moves forward with the decision collectively. Simple as that.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more. This is one cartoon that it just drives me nuts. That ain't my job. Okay, it's a complex business. The interesting thing about local government or government is that we are involving ourselves in things that the private sector either cannot, will not, or does not want to provide. Okay, so how do I get something accomplished and not waste your time and other people's time and taxpayers' dollars? Okay, your job is to look after and be responsible for the well-being of your citizens. They've elected you by statute and by your oath of office. That is your responsibility. And whether that's, enforcing the good neighbor bylaw, parking regulations, whatever. One of the things you need to do is that you need to enforce your bylaws, or else get rid of the bylaw. One of the things you need to do is develop an annual budget or a 5-year capital budget. You need to be, you are the audit committee to ensure there are safeguards for the monies that you're entrusted to the village. You are required to ensure all provincial legislation as it pertains to local government is correctly complied with. And you have to do all this within your set budgets unless you choose to borrow. And then you have to decide what are the long-term priorities of the village, because there are a lot of competing priorities. I remember a councillor very early in my career said to a taxpayer, "I'm prepared to give you everything you're willing to pay for." And I think that's one of the things that you need to start looking at. It's not going to be an easy task, because a lot of people are going to want a lot of things, and you have to start prioritizing. Okay, as Jim talked about, you're elected as an individual, but you're now a member of a 5-person team with over 150 meetings to go.
I hope it's only 150.
Is that over 4 years?
It's over 4 years. Yeah. Okay, it's a complex business. It has the same legislative requirements as any other municipality, but at a smaller scale, and obviously with a much smaller staff. I think you know all this. You have full-time public works staff. Seasonal staff is budgeted. 1 full-time office coordinator, which is a union position. 1 part-time accounts receivable payable clerk, 28 hours a week, union position. 1 part-time office assistant, union. 1 part-time building inspector. 2 part-time receptionists. 1 CAO/CFO. 1 contractor financial person. 1 public works manager, and 1 fire chief. And yet you have the same legislative requirements as a place. How many times? What's the percentage? West Vancouver. So how does all this work? And I think Jim said it, and I think all of you said it around the table. It's teamwork. So am I saying anything different than perhaps any other place? Is no. One of the things, though, that you are going to be concerned about, and I think you should be concerned about, and I don't know how, Carl, how you dealt with this, or how the other mayors dealt with this at the Translink, is that, I found it absolutely incomprehensible how you were expected to make a vote, to vote on the Translate question at your very first meeting. I found, the timing of that was very interesting. Okay, this is what I believe is critical to the ability to achieve anything over the next 4 years, the next 150 meetings, is whether in fact you're going to be honest with each other. And whether you're willing to listen to other people's opinions. When I was in Delta at the school district, one of the things I found very interesting, I had a superintendent, and one of the things he demanded of us before we did make any decision, he said, how will this improve the quality of education for our students? So, interesting, when I did this research, I would suggest you look at these 3 questions before you pass anything. And whose interest is this for? If we pass it, can we adequately enforce it? There's a lot of legislation that people pass that you can't enforce. And how much is it going to cost? When we started talking about enforcing, secondary suites or legalizing secondary suites, it's a massive cost in some municipalities to enforce that. So when you start talking about doing anything, can you afford to actually do it? Okay, the other part, and I just go back to it, is that don't be pressured to make quick decisions. And I think that's, that sometimes you're going to be forced to do that. Always be prepared to say, I don't know, I need more time. Obviously, this is going to frustrate people. I don't know if you're going to be able to do this, and I don't know what issues are going to be facing you at any particular times, but I found many in some organizations I've been with that you're forced to make decisions without adequate information. The trouble is that you simply can't just table it forever. I think at times it's necessary to make a decision. Developers end up, they don't really care whether they develop in Lions Bay, Parksville, Surrey, Richmond, Vancouver. They want to make their 22% profit, and they want to do it without much hassle, as quickly as they possibly can. So if they come into a community where the municipality delays the approval process, they're the ones that are going to say, I'm not going to come here anymore. Or and what I found in a number of organizations, the goalposts keep on changing and being moved. It's important that when you start down a path that you have an end goal in mind and not change that unless it's absolutely critical. Because what frustrates more than anybody is going down a line and never getting there, or changing the goalposts, or changing things as you move down that road. The other thing is that you're going to quickly learn is that you are not elected to make friends, but to provide for the health and safety and welfare of the citizens of Lions Bay. This sometimes will place you in the hot seat. Oh, typo. But your obligations now extend to the whole community. Your personal interests are now secondary to those of the community as a whole, as the election has now placed the pressures and problems of the whole community onto your shoulders.
Gee, thanks.
The other part that you're going to find is that your words are now news. You know, before you were elected, you could say almost anything you wanted to do, and you probably didn't have a heck of a lot of pushback. But what you're going to find now is what you say as the mayor, as a councillor, is going to be passed on, it's going to be quoted, and it's going to be often misquoted. You're now considered a politician, and as such, you're fair game for public scrutiny with regard to all your endeavors and opinions. So I'll talk a wee bit about conflict of interest, and Chris Murdy will be here in a few minutes to talk about conflict of interest as well. So be prepared that if you start talking about the school, or if you start talking about this, or you start talking about that, they're going to say, oh, the mayor said it's going to happen, so it better happen. Well, I didn't really say that. I didn't really say, that. Well, that's what the mayor said, and Joe told me over there, who heard it from Bill, who heard it from Frank over there, and I'm sure that's what Carl said. So anyways, be prepared for that. So think before you leap. One of the things that you're going to find, which is going to really be scary, is that if you start saying things out there and they are wrong or potentially libelous, you can be sued. And the scary part is you may not be covered. Because if you say something out there that is hurting another person's business and you defame them, you are going to be held liable, and the village will not cover you. More importantly is that the village most likely will be sued. And so what's going to happen is that if that was said out there and in fact is proven that it was libelous, then you're going to have the village's pockets are going to be considered to be deeper than your own personal pockets. And I don't know what your personal incomes are, but what's going to typically happen is the courts are going to rule that the village has deeper pockets in there, and that's not covered by insurance. Which means is that you not only are you going to be sued, and you're going to have to cover your own legal costs, but the village will be sued, and regardless, is that there's going to be a lot of legal costs involved. So protect your backside and protect the village. There are two kinds of conflicts, and Helen, you're talking about. One is pecuniary, where you get a direct or indirect financial interest, and the other one is bias, personal interest, and closed mind or prejudgment. So, Chris will talk about this in a little bit more detail, but the thing is that if you have a direct pecuniary, that means you get a direct financial benefit or an indirect financial interest. So you got to watch that. The other one is that for bias, you make a decision and you've already made up your mind. That is typically really only for public hearings. So you can say this is the way you want to go. The only time that you can't have a closed mind is at a public hearing. At a public hearing, it doesn't matter whether you have an interest in something. You can say, well, I believe this is the right thing to do. But you have to declare that you have an open mind and be prepared to listen to people who oppose it or people support a particular issue. One of the things you're going to find is, and I've read a lot of campaign literature over my career, And what I've discovered is that predominantly campaign literature focuses on the individual's perception of the vision, ideals, and aspirations of the community. What is typically I see afterwards is that this perception is through a lens that has not been clouded or colored or scratched by a myriad of conflicting priorities. And so you know, one of the things that is I find as a private citizen that I find really frustrating is that as in a campaign, you can promise anything you want. The difficulty is once you get elected, then you start realizing how things will change. What tends to happen is instead of pursuing vision and goals, elected officials become very quickly involved in helping to manage the community. Some feel that the public have hired them to do the job rather than elected to them to provide leadership. Thus, there is the specter of elected officials becoming so buried in administrivia that they are unable to see the larger picture. Your job is to understand the operations of this organization, set the leadership, hire the staff to make sure that they can get the work done, give them the ability, the tools to get the work done, and then hold them accountable. Okay, again, you're elected as an individual, but you're now part of the team. Why work as a team? I think Jim talked about it, is that remember when you make the decision, you're choosing from alternatives, not between right and wrong. The other part is that you cannot know with 100% certainty that your decision is correct because the actions to implement it are in the future. When making a decision, remember there are 50 shades of gray. So involve those affected, as it will most likely increase their commitment. Greater sum of knowledge, bring and greater acceptance. And then, what you are elected to do is to provide leadership, set a vision for this organization, and try to make sure that it's carried out. So what really is it? Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. Leadership is influence. That's what you have. You have a lot of influence. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay. Attributes of leaders. I won't go through this in detail because I've written it down, but these are things that I've, and I've cobbled together, and I'm sure, in your own careers you've seen a lot of this, probably written in many different ways. But what is the attribute of a good counsel? Is that you are aware. You understand the difference between management and employees, bosses and workers. You're decisive. A good organization is decisive. You make tough decisions. It goes with the job. Sometimes people don't like your decisions. As I said earlier, that's what you get paid for. That's what you ran for. You need to be empathetic. You need to understand that extraordinary leaders praise in public and address problems in private. You guide employees through their challenges, always on the lookout for solutions to foster the long-term success of the organization. Rather than making things personal when they encounter problems or assigning blame to individuals, leaders look for constructive solutions and focus on moving forward. You hold people accountable. You hold your staff accountable as the electorate holds you accountable 4 years from now. You need to have confidence that you're doing the right things. The only way that you can do that is make sure you do your homework. You need to be optimistic. You are the leaders here. You need to be positive about this community and where you're going. Honest. Strong leaders treat people how they want to be treated. They're ethical and believe that honesty, effort, and reliability form the foundation of success. You have focus. You know what you want to accomplish. You need to establish strategies. You've got a vision of where you want to take this organization. You establish strategies. You establish processes. You need to move this organization forward. And you need to inspire. You need to inspire people to come invest into this community. You need to inspire people to come to move into this community. You need to inspire your staff. You need to inspire each other. The trouble is that you are 5 people. You are a team. The trouble, and I'm sure you've seen this written in many different ways throughout your career. But one of the things that Carl's responsibility as the mayor and as the leader of this team is that it's his job, really, to try to find out where you're going to be in this. You know, there are 6 phases of any team. One is forming. People have differing and sometimes fuzzy ideas about their teammates. There's still a relatively low level of trust. Team's leader is seen as the planner and the decision maker. Flexibility and adaptability is low. Storming. Norming. People are beginning to develop a common vision to set goals and objectives. Performing. Conforming. So this is a cycle, and we all know that. So that you're not, there's just not one phase that you're going to be stuck in all the time. You're going to see this team move through these phases, and it's going to be up to the mayor and yourselves to make sure that you're in the right phase. And 6, transforming. Team members share a common vision, a sense of purpose. Communication is open, trust is high. Leadership is shared among all team members. Work procedures are effective and flexible. Team members maximize the synergy of the individual differences in skills, flexibility. The team thrives on continuous learning. Team members think outside the current frame of that reference. Any change to any bylaw, any new parking regulations, change to the tree bylaw, change to the dogs, whether they're going to be leashed or not leashed, where they're going to be leashed or not leashed, the opening and closing of parks. There's going to be some people that will support you and some people that will condemn you. Frustrations, not knowing where to start. The council and village is too secretive, no real priorities, everything is a priority, no ability to measure results, crisis management, oh, we're terribly reactionary. No clear agenda, perceived wronged agenda, no clear outcome, lack of coordinated communication, lack of teamwork, lack of respect of and for others.
Is this specific to Lions Bay? Is that, I'm just wondering, is this
every
your,
organization.
no, or, yes.
I hope.
Is
What
this
do you
your
think?
observation?
What do you think?
Kinda, yes.
So where do you start? In my opinion, always follow the money. You need to understand your budget. You need to understand where the money is being spent. I understand that in January the committee of the whole focused solely on the 2014 budget and the expenditures to date. You need to understand where money is spent. I would strongly recommend that you don't micromanage, but you need to understand where the money is spent. Understand what are the village's fixed costs. Ask why these costs are fixed. There's nothing wrong with that. If we can't answer those questions, then there's something wrong. By far the largest percentages that we all know of any operating budget are labor costs. Understand what they do. But once you understand it, let them do their job. But before you go forward, you need to set aside time to talk about what you want to accomplish in your 4 years in office, and what kind of community, not that I'm doing this myself, I find it too typeless, you want to become. Okay, 10 habits of highly effective councils. 1, act and think strategically. A strategic council always comes from the future and takes you back to the past. The leadership starts with a vision. And in my opinion, good strategy involves incorporating the triple bottom line approach. Understand and demonstrate the elements of teamwork. By law, councils exist and have authority only when their members convene as bodies to do business. Master small group decision making. 5 people, it's difficult. It's really a challenge. You're going to have a really close working relationship. You've got to understand each other and you've got to learn to respect each other. Clearly define roles and relationships. And I would strongly recommend, and I think in any organization, you need to involve the CAO as part of the team. Start with the fundamentals. The player's got to know the basics of the game, i.e. the budget, and how to play his or her position. What your roles on this council is. There's 5 of you, what do each one of you do? establish and abide by a council-staff partnership. There used to be a saying, and I think I talked to Carl about this, is that there used to be a saying that council makes policy and staff implements policy. That's not true. Staff are assisting you to help develop policy. You also are involved to a certain extent in managing. The trouble, you don't want to fall into the trap where you get too far in each person's area, or else they're going to say, well, the CIO is running this place. What you want to be able to do in a good organization is to set policy, set expectations, get the staff to agree that they can accomplish it, and then hold them accountable. Make a systematic evaluation of policy implementation. Was it John Luke, what's his name? In not Star Wars, what's the show?
Star Trek.
Star Trek, where he says, make it so. The trouble is that he then says and expects somebody else to do the work. Your job is to expect that you get in my opinion, in a good organization, is that you get feedback. If you pass something, don't just let it go into Ethernet or into space. Make sure that there's a quarterly review, or at least a 6-month review, that once you pass something, how is it? Is it working? If you got a new parking bylaw, is it working? Is the suites bylaw? How many suites have actually been registered? Is it actually achieving what you were hoping it would achieve? The trouble is that this is a small organization. Allocate council time and energy appropriately. I can't stress this enough. This is a small community, the new mayor, 2 new councillors, a new CAO, small staff, limited budget. But what you need to do is set up time up front to determine where you want to be in the future. Set clear rules and procedures for council and committee meetings. Nothing is more frustrating, and I can attest to that, and I think all of you have been in some committees where, oh geez, let them speak. Or, geez, that person's just rambling. You've got a draft procedures bylaw, review it, and then pass it and adhere to it. One of the things I strongly recommend you do is have a discussion about your minute taking. That has, the time that I've been here, has frustrated me to no end about whether they're going to be verbatim minutes or what type of minutes do you want. If you want verbatim minutes, if you want them recorded, if you want them etched in stone, that's your decision. But once you make that decision, then adhere to it. The trouble is that, I have my own opinion of how minutes should be taken. You need to decide on what this council's decision and how minutes should be taken. Get a valid assessment of the public's concern and evaluation of your performance. Your actual evaluation is not for another 4 years. However, I believe you need to communicate better. We've all talked about this, and I've talked, each one of you, and you all want to communicate better. There's a number of ways you can do that. You are going to be going back to LUMP, the Land Use Master Strategy. Should be LUS, or LUMPS. I don't know. People have had their lumps. So people are going to come out to oppose. What you want to do is have them come out to affirm, whatever you choose to do. So you need to figure out how you want feedback and how you're going to move this thing forward. But remember, you can get as much information as you want out to the public, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Practice continuous personal learning and development. Go to the conferences. There's UBCM, there's the Lower Mainland, what is it called, organization. You learn a lot from your peers. There's no such thing as a new wheel. Everybody in a lot of organizations try to invent the wheel. One of the biggest, I think, not problems, but frustrations, perhaps even, how do I put it? How do I politely put this? Abbotsford built a new public arena. They spent millions of dollars. They've wasted millions of dollars. I know people in this province that build arenas around the world. They said they never came and spoke to me. I could have given them a lot of information up front that could have saved them millions of dollars. The city of Vancouver over the Olympic Village wasted millions of dollars. In my opinion, some people should, I think that was criminal. I think people should have gone to jail over that issue. The best organization to build that type of facility was the UBC Properties Trust. UBC Properties Trust was never asked for their opinion or further guidance. And so what did City of Vancouver? Well, we know it. We know how to build private, and it ended up costing them tens of millions of dollars. So the thing is that there's a lot of people out there with information. Try to, and they're willing to support you. Just ask. Okay, challenges facing this council: articulation of clear roles, developing a strong and supportive team, using council staff, developing a vision, engaging the community. Okay, imagine a community vision that is inspirational, which the community and staff can embrace and relate to, and provide a basis or standard for allocating resources. I think, in my mind, you need to start with what your vision is. I've talked to Carl about the current vision of the village, and I challenge any one of you to quote it.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
The community embracing the sea and the sky with seagulls and owls and eagles.
Pretty close, but not quite.
That sort of tone, anyway.
That sort of tone, okay. Imagine an organization that knows what its stakeholders will want 10 to 15 years from now. And what will they do to prepare to meet and exceed it? Imagine an organization where each employee knows what he or she is expected of. Imagine a team that respects the different ideas, styles, and talents of each other, that understands and respects, that has a sustainable operating budget, that sets goals and holds each other accountable. Okay, start with the first things first. In my opinion, you start with a mission, vision, goals, strategies, objectives. Actually, I should go vision, goals, strategies, sorry. A high-performing council has a powerful sense of vision, which is led by council, written in partnership with the community, shared and owned by all, and which shapes and drives action throughout the organization. Develop, in my opinion, you need to spend the time and the effort on developing this council's mission and vision. Create your vision of the future of Lions Bay. Develop the strategies for moving forward. Set challenging short and long-term goals. Empower your team. Ensure you're able to measure the outcomes. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So I'm a strong believer in KPIs. So governance is a serious business.
Sorry, what was KPI? What's
Key performance indicators.
Numbers. Thing is, any successful business does that. Any successful business does that. You can't go anywhere without a vision or without a mission or any of that kind of stuff.
Thanks, Clark.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean that's an amalgamation of many years' experience. Extremely valuable. You did kind of whip through it, so it's going to take some redigestion. I think what I got out of it was actually leads, just like we planned, segues neatly into my my belief that this council must act as one. We debate, we're going to disagree. If it comes to a vote, then it's whichever side gets 3 votes. If it's by acclamation, so much better. And then we throw away the alternatives and we proceed on what was decided. And I think that's the key change that we're going to see in this council. There's much more that I had prepared to say at our pre-inauguration, but the events have overtaken us, so we're going to have to catch up on a lot of this stuff. But one of the things I will be asking people to do very soon is to take your initial cut at redoing the vision statement of Lions Bay, which is in the front page of OCP, it's front page of our website. If you think you should say the same, great. if we think it should change completely, that's also great. And see what needs to be done to amalgamate. Okay, so we're going to move on. Thanks again, Grant. We owe you, dude. We are now at item 8 on the agenda, public questions and comments. Beg your pardon?
There being none.
There being none. We move to item 9. Do I need to read the resolution?
Yes.
Be it resolved that the Village of Lions Bay Council does close the December 16th, 2014 Committee of the Whole Council meeting to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the Community Charter 90, Part 1. A part of the council meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to one or more of the following. From Section A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality. Part C, labor relations or other employee relations. And Part G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. Mover. Moved by Councillor McLaughlin, seconded by Councillor Bain. All in favour? Opposed? Carried.
Okay, so we're back in the public meeting.
Okay, good, thanks. So item 10 on the agenda is reporting out. It was decided in closed meeting. Well, first of all, we had an orientation on conflict of interest and freedom of information requests. Gratefully received by all, pretty good stuff. Thanks for arranging that, by the way. And the other thing that we're reporting out on is assignment of the chairs of 4 committees, the structure of which is still to be advised by staff, whether standing or select or other. Finance will be chaired by Councillor Ron McLaughlin. Sorry, Ron. I'll just say Ron. Infrastructure Committee will be chaired by Councillor Fred Bain. Community Committee will be chaired by Councillor Helen Watson. And the Government Committee will be chaired by Councillor Jim Hughes. That concludes the reporting out. Item 11, adjournment. Motion for adjournment. So moved. All in favour? Opposed? Carried.
Sorry, who's moved in second?
Just go clockwise.
Just whoever you decide. Everybody was willing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.